Hello, all you hardcores out there, how you doing? It's Russ here from Poker's Corner, the biggest gob in the sport. We say the things on here that everybody wants to say. And if you want to come on, pokercorner@mail.com, get in touch and we'll sort of zoom out. How are you doing, Ian? You all right, mate?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. How's it going?
All right, you're looking a bit smart today.
No, I've got a day off. So I was supposed to be riding a helicopter today. My missus got it for me for one of them Virgin Experience days.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to be riding a helicopter. Is it riding or driving a helicopter? I don't know what you do with a
Flying, isn't
helicopter.
it?
Riding,
Flying.
flying. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I was supposed to be doing that, and then they told me last night that they were having technical difficulties, so I couldn't do it. At least they told me before I was in it. That could have been an issue.
Yeah, if you're crashing them, it's not good, is it?
Nah, I think the survival rate's pretty low.
Yeah, it is. Uh,
Yeah,
Good luck with that one, but it won't get me in one of them. Uh,
yeah,
Before we start, do you know the thing about the stoppage and that? Do you want to read that out? What I sent you?
yeah, yeah,
Read it out and let me know what you think. You know about Liam Cameron should have got the win and blah blah. That's off a British Boxing Board of Control referee. So, and I've checked with the Green Book, and it is correct. That is the rules and the rule book. So you read that out because everybody's missed this. Everybody.
yeah. It says, according to the rules, Ben Whittaker should have lost the contest as he could not continue, so he was retired by his corner. It should only go to scorecards if an accidental head clash caused a cut, which obviously didn't happen.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Everybody's missed it, haven't they? It looks like the money is with Ben Whittaker and the investment, and I think it's just a case of somebody else being the B side and not getting a fair crack at whip. That's how I look at it. I don't know what do you think about that, Ian?
Yes, yeah, I think you're right. Like what I wanted to talk about a bit today, which kind of ties in with this, is the
Yeah.
whole, fighters who build a profile and, when they have the promotion behind them and they build them up on social media. And it's almost to the point where it almost doesn't really matter what happens in the ring to a point because they just build up such a profile. Obviously, the early career wins, are pretty important. And you're right, yeah, in this case, he's got he's got that McGregor kind of swagger about him, that Prince Nassim kind of swagger about him, which irritates me to hell. But yeah, he does. But and people like that gain traction quickly, and put bums on seats, as they say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely a kink in the armor. Wasn't expected to be like that. Personally, I love it. I always like go for the underdog, and I think it's good in it. And Liam's got a great story as well, though. That's something that we shouldn't forget. Talking about where he's come from. What they might even drop Whitaker and just run with Liam. I mean, who's his
Well,
promoter?
Liam's now signed with Bricktop, Anna, yesterday.
Yes, of course.
Everybody
More
wanted,
to piss off Eddie Hearn.
yeah. Well,
Eddie Hearn will hate that, won't he?
Yeah, Eddie Hills wanted to sign Ben Whittaker because his deal's coming up with Sky. Now, what I noticed with Horsecock at Sky, he was in the studio with Anthony Yard and a few other people, and he was saying Ben Whittaker needs to be very careful and think about what he says now. I was surprised at that because Whittaker's a Sky fighter. Horsecock works for Sky, and it looked like Horsecock were throwing him under a bus. But Liam Cameron, who I know very well, I know him 10 years, he were on my first ever interview. I put that at the end of Jerry's Zoom yesterday. That's a good watch that from about 7 years ago. Point I want to make is Liam used to train with Dominic Ingle, and he left Chris Smedley, went to Ingles, then he went back to Chris. But Johnny's probably gone into bat for Liam a little bit because Liam's a Sheffield lad, but Johnny didn't do Ben Whittaker any favours, which quite rightly so. But if Matchroom would have been involved with Sky, I don't think Johnny would have been talking like that. You see where I'm coming from? I don't know what do you think.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I absolutely agree. So what is the deal with Sky and Matchroom? Because obviously, Matchroom jumped over to DAZN. But they must still have some sort of
Yeah,
common
they do the pool,
commercial
don't they? I think,
interests.
and the darts, pool darts. I think do they, I'm not sure if they do odd Fishermania. They used to do Fishermania in Bessica near Borty Road. A guy I used to work for, Robin Goforth. He's got two lakes down there, Adam and Lucy's Lake. They used to do Fishermania there on Sky. I don't know if they still do that, but I know they do pool. They do Snooker Premier League, I think, and they do darts, don't they? So they still
Yeah,
got the leg
something
the
you
Sky.
Yeah, something you've got to remember as well is, with these big companies, it's kind of a bit like politics. You have the right and the left, and they sort of pretend they hate each other and they oppose opposite things and they're doing what's in the best interest for their parties. But essentially, they all still went to the same, private schools. They're all still buddies. Like, the higher up people, they're still going to be doing each other favors, and there's still going to be, the same interests in the companies, and they're going to carry on doing business no matter what, in some aspect, in some sport or another. So yeah, they're all going. They're Johnny Nelson's not gonna. He's not going to shit on Matchroom. He's probably thinking as well about future career and whatnot. I mean, with Sky and boxing, I've heard whispers of, are they even going to continue? Is it even financially viable for them? That's interesting as well. And if Johnny knows something we don't, then he's going to be thinking about who's going to be paying his wages down the road.
Yeah, John, I'm sure Johnny will be all right. He's got an MBE, he'll milk that to death. Johnny,
And he's
Johnny,
got a horse
Johnny
cock,
always,
which helps.
yeah, Johnny always gets where there's a few quid. He's not shy. He loves a freebie. Uh, Looking at it from the outside, this Saudi thing might have just saved Ben Shalom's neck for the time being because his deal will be up soon. Whether he gets another shot at the title with Sky, I'm not so sure. I personally think they'll go back to Matchroom Sky if they continue the boxing. And I think that's why Eddie is always chipping away at Ben Shalom and Bricktop as well. Because listen, they'd love to be on Sky. That's where the pay-per-view is. They'd love to be join forces and get Shalom out of the way and share them dates, Matchroom and Queensby. And that's the big talk at the moment. Let's get this kid out of the way. We'll join forces and we'll have Sky because that's the flagship and that's where it's all leading to. But no YouTubers are putting that out there. Only me. You see where I'm coming from? Because I get to hear
Yeah.
little bits and bobs and I get to know that they're having a bit of a clean up and that they've changed all personnel. Have you noticed? Got rid of Glenn McCrory, Super Bean's gone, David A's gone. Carl Froch had a deal there. He'd been there 10 years. He were on good money. He refused to wear a BLM badge. He said, no, I'll wear an ALM badge, All Lives Matter badge. That didn't go down too well. So he's gone. It is what it is, isn't it? But I don't see Shalom lasting long at Sky. I see Bricktop and Hills getting rid of him, joining forces and getting the Sky slots. And Sky probably giving them a slot every week instead of 20 a year, which is what they've done for years and years. I see them giving them 52 slots or 50, something like that. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like one a week and then off at Christmas, New Year. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think unfortunately with Ben Shalom, you can give him, some praise. At least he's sort of got in there and they put on a few shows. But the thing is with people, especially like Eddie Hearn, whatever you think of Eddie Hearn, he is a great promoter. He is a
Yeah,
big
yeah, very good
mouthpiece.
sponsor.
He does his job very effectively. The
Tells a lot of
promoters in
lies, though.
America.
Tells a lot of lies.
Yeah, it does. But like you say, if you control the boxing channels, if you have influence over them, it doesn't matter. You can lie. And I just think with Ben Shalom, he's dropped the ball a couple of times. He's maybe not done a lot wrong, but in the kind of power play, that goes on, if you show any weakness, that thing with Bricktop the other day with, like lightly put, he didn't push him out the way, did he? He
He just
barely
walked
touched
in
him.
front
And
of
then he
him.
got made to look like a mug. He got made to look like a mug for it. He basically apologized. If he had have stood his ground on that, he would have earned some respect amongst the boxing fans, but he didn't. He completely, cucked it basically. And in instances like that, kind of showing, yeah, he's probably not going to be able to compete with the big boys, because as a promoter, you have to take all the shit. And and Bricktop and Eddie Hills, they do make mistakes, obviously, but they, at least they'll stand in front of a camera and they'll take it on the chin and they'll argue it back and they'll turn it around, and they do that very effectively. If you can't do that, you're not going to be able to hang with them.
Yeah. Getting back to the Liam Cameron situation, I've noticed that Lee Eaton, his manager's making a bit of noise. But Lee Eaton, if you're a manager, where's that green book? Why don't you study the British Boxing Board of Control rules and put an appeal in regarding regarding it being classed as a no contest or a Liam Cameron win? I'm not really hearing about that. All I'm hearing is rematch, rematch, rematch. Stop thinking about your slice of the cake off Liam's back. Because where was you, Lee Eaton, when Liam Cameron were doing a 4-year ban? When people like my pal Chris Smedley were looking after Liam and other people, where were you then? Where were you? You were nowhere, were you? Now you want to come in at the other end, now that Liam's got a bit of exposure. So why don't you put an appeal in and get it as a no contest or get it as a Liam Cameron win? You need to study the Green Book and the rules if you are a manager, but if you're a manager, manage. Okay. I want to ask you, we spoke about if you're the B side and you're the A side. Yeah, A side gets all the favors. He comes out second. He gets a choice of gloves. You know what he feels right for his hands. Forget the B side. Choice of ring size, venue. I'm not saying there's a judge in everybody's pocket, but judges tend to favour the home fighters if there's close rounds. It's gone on for years. Can you tell me, I don't know, 3 or 4 instances where the B sides had it all their own way? I'll give you a couple just to get us on his way. Tyson Fury against Otto Wallin. That fight should have been stopped. Do we agree on that?
100%.
Right.
Yeah, and it would have been if it wasn't Fury.
Yeah. Fury were where the money was. He was the A side. A Bob Arum fighter. Uh, the fight wasn't stopped. Normally that would have been stopped, and Fury would have been would have lost, wouldn't he? Then the Fury versus Wilder, the knockdown at the end. We've seen them stopped like that straight away, haven't we? We're given 20. It was 23 seconds, was it, before the fight restarted from him hitting the deck. So he were given ample opportunity in that 12th round, wasn't he? Do you feel
Of
that
course he was. Yeah.
there's other instances like that? And can you remember any? I can remember those, but can you remember any?
Well, we only have to go back to Fury's last fight. I mean, he was out on his feet. He was protected by the ropes.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
He never got a take.
he was.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the rules are around that, but he didn't get. Did he get a standing count?
Yeah, I
I'm
think he
pretty
got a
sure he
standing
just got
count. Yeah, but
helped up.
he didn't hit the deck, did he? Yeah, he was given every opportunity. It should have been stopped basically, but he carried on, didn't he? He was given plenty of time. But I think the panic
Yeah,
was these eight big stars not to stop the fight, don't they? That's what I think. Uh,
yeah, definitely. Trying to think of another example. Um,
Arthur Abraham against Edison Miranda, the first one in Germany, where the referee stopped the fight and declared Miranda the winner. Willie Sauerland jumped up and said to the referee, Randy Newman, no, 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 you can't stop it. Abraham's jaw were broken on it, blood were coming out of it. No, no, you're not stopping it, you're carrying on. And there was some confusion. They carried on for loads of more rounds, and the referee ended up taking 5 points of Edison Miranda during that fight altogether. Usually, after the second points, there isn't usually a third one, it's usually a disqualification. He took 5 points, and at the end of the fight, which I thought Edison Miranda won, you took them 5 points. If you put them 5 points back on Edison Miranda's score, go and check it all. He would have still won anyway, Abraham. So, in my opinion, that was a classic case of the home fighter getting home fighter decisions. I don't know what you think. Sven Otka, he had plenty of chances. Do you remember him, don't you? Sven Otka, he were given home.
I don't know.
Sven Otka had
Well, I just
22 defences, didn't he, in Germany? Two in Austria,
yeah,
20 in Germany. He's got the record with Calzaghe, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. Why? Because of all the hometown decisions. Just general
yeah,
uh, hometown bias, and the promotions with that person. And you'll be able to tell me a lot more, surely.
yeah. Well, just thinking of a more recent one, the AJ Dubois fight. Did you notice the ref actually called it off at one point? He went like that with his hands,
Yeah,
and then he kept on fighting. Did you notice that?
yeah, I did notice that. Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah, I did.
So I suppose the ref I mean, in certain other sports, you'd
They
think if
bottle
the
it,
ref.
don't they? They bottle it, the refs. They're good to stop it, and
That's what I
they
mean.
panic.
Yeah, yeah. So surely, like in other sports, you'd think when the ref signals, like that's it. You know what I mean? But in boxing, it's like he's waved it off, then he's realised, oh well, actually, AJ, he's got a tiny bit of life left in him, and they just kind of let it continue. If that doesn't show your bias, I don't know what does.
I'll tell you another corker, a bit backfired on them. Sergio Kovalev came over to fight Nathan Cleverly, right, for the
Big
WBO
Sergio
title.
fan.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
came over and he was red hot at the time. Nathan Cleverly was the own fighter, a brick top fighter, blah blah blah. He got put on button moon at end of round. Terry O'Connor carried him back to his chair, put him in his chair, gave him plenty time, and did everything he could, but he couldn't keep Kovalev off him that night. But Nathan
yeah.
Cleverly,
Well, ironically, when Kovalev fought Andre Ward in the rematch, I can't remember what something weird
low
happened. Like
blows.
Kovalev got hit, he got hit in the balls, and rather than give him time to recover, he basically counted him out.
Yeah, Andre Ward's had more hometown cooking than anybody, especially with low blows and headbutts. Look what he did to Mikhail Kessler in that fight. He cut him there
Mm,
and there. You've never seen anything like it. It was plain old butchery. That's what it were. He would
yeah,
headbutt Carl Froch all night, and he holds a lot. He was holding on average eight times around, and each clinch we
mm,
was like 15, 20 seconds, and all he's doing is running the clock down all the time. Do you see what I'm coming
well,
from? And all
yeah,
staying out
yeah,
of range. Very dirty, messy fighter. And like I said years
mm,
ago, he put that glass eye to sleep. But he was effective and he
yeah.
got away with it. That's why
He was.
he never fought outside America, did he, Ward? Never, in a title fight. So
No, no. Klitschko was very similar in that, he
yeah,
was a champion for about 11 years. But if you go back and watch his fights, a lot of it was throws like a jab, a right hand, and then holds on, so you can't throw anything back. And like you say, it's very effective because if you hit him with the right hand, they're probably going to go down because he was a big punching heavyweight. But even if he doesn't, he grabs them so they can't throw anything back, which is very frustrating to watch. And it's frustrating if you're the opponent, I suppose, because you can't really get anything off.
yeah, yeah. I see where you're coming from, Ian. I see where you're coming from. What
Mm.
else did you want to talk about?
So with the what I spoke about earlier, the Conor McGregor effect or the Prince Nassim effect, what I was going to ask you, right, Porky, is do you think nowadays well, for one, do fighters need a big like social media profile to get opportunities in boxing, or can you just make a good living and be successful just through your skills alone and no social media press profile? And if you like, I can think of a couple examples. So, for example, Big Baby Miller, right? He's not a great boxer. He's a big puncher, but he's not a very good boxer, but he's got a big profile. The Saudis love him because he's big and brash and he causes a scene and he, causes controversy. So I'd say he's financially done very well out of his persona. Um, and then you look at fighters like Golovkin, who was only really got mainstream attention for when he fought Canelo, even though before that he was like 30 fights unbeaten with like a 95% knockout rate or something like that. But he was an unknown commodity because he was just stoic, didn't make a fuss, just done his job extremely well. So, apart from sort of them examples, yeah, do you think fighters can just off skill alone make a good living from boxing?
I think they have to have a social media presence, but I think some of them overdo it. Like David Allen, he concentrated more on Twitter and tweeting people at 4 in the morning and not getting up in the morning for his run, so it can have a detrimental effect. But I think they've got to get a balance. I think Johnny Fisher's doing it right. He lets his dad do all the work for him, and he concentrates on his fighting. But then, if you look at somebody who's very similar to Johnny Fisher, say Solomon Dakras, does anybody know who he is? You see where I'm coming from?
No.
He's about at same level, that they're still, coming out of that novice type into like, looking to get area belts, English Commonwealth, all that kind of thing. Nobody knows who he is because he's not out there, and I think that'll probably harm him moving forward. Whereas Johnny Fisher, instead of him doing all his social media, he's got his dad doing it, with all this Bosch stuff and Chinese food thing and all this kind of carry on. It's quite entertaining and that, but Eddie Hills buys into all that, doesn't he? But if you look at the fighters that Eddie's had over the years, Luis Ortiz, remember him, don't you? He was
Yeah,
WBA interim champion,
very good fighter.
one,
Barely heard
two-time
of.
Olympian, doesn't say a word. Usyk,
Mm.
we know what Usyk's done. European World Olympic gold, undisputed cruiser, undisputed heavyweight. Eddie had him as and didn't do nothing with him, let him go. And there's been other fighters. Who else did Eddie have? And he let go. He let another one go. Uh, it'll come to him, but he doesn't see. He let Lawrence Okoli go. He wasn't engaging. Boatsi, he let him go because he weren't engaging. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Okay, let me ask you
Zhang,
another
he let
question then,
Zhang
Paul,
go. You know
because
Zhang, Olympic silver medalist who beat
yeah,
Joyce. He let him go
yeah,
because they're not engaging, but he'll buy into the Johnny Fisher types, won't he? And Derek Chisora and all that because they're engaged.
yeah. Okay, I got a question for you then. Because of social media, can you make it as a pro boxer without the likes of a promoter?
Yeah, I think you can. If you like, do you know that film with Tom Hardy where he fights his brother? Have you seen it?
Yeah, yeah, great film.
Tom
Yeah,
Hardy plays this silent assassin that isolates people all the way through it. If you're something like that and you're getting in the ring and you're absolutely decapitating people and you don't want to speak to anybody and you're this roadman killer, you know, Aaron Pryor type, Gerald McClellan type, that type of killer,
mm.
and you don't say anything, I think people could buy into that. Like Kovalev were a bit like that, one because he killed the guy in the ring, didn't he,
Yeah.
Kovalev? And everybody were like,
Oh,
gee,
did he? I didn't know that.
hey,
I
yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, killed the guy in the ring. If you check his career, so
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
it's hard to get forward if you haven't got a social media presence. That's what I think. I think the big guys, the big dogs, they need to buy into like Shaka Stevenson. Nobody really buys into him, do they? Really?
no,
Lomachenko. Look at the skill sets on these guys. Nobody buys into him. You look at Conor
mm,
Ben. He hasn't won a belt, but look at his profile. He's playing the bad
yeah.
guy, you know, the villain, and he's on social media being controversial. He's going to get paid, isn't he? But he has not won an area belt, an English, a British, a Commonwealth, a European, or a world title. Yet he's 23 and 0. He's got all them knockouts. He's not achieved anything in the sport, but yet he's going to earn a lot of money.
What level would you say Conor Ben is at? Say if he got in camp now for 12 weeks, could he be a world champion, a interim champion, a British champion? Like what kind of level do you think he could
I don't
be
think
at?
Conor Ben. You say Josh Kelly's British level, wouldn't you? Yeah, British stroke
Yeah,
European level. Josh Kelly.
yeah.
If they fought at 147, 154, or 160, Josh Kelly would light Conor Ben up and put him on button moon. Let me tell you, he would put Lewis Ritson would light him up at 154 or 147.
Mm.
Light him up. I don't think he'd beat those guys. Now I think he's probably English stroke British level at 147 on his best day. Stroke British level. That might be they might be able to pinch it. See, some promoters can pinch people British titles, whereas in other
Yeah.
eras they wouldn't have won a British title. He might be able to pinch a British title that's vacant if it's against some weak guy, and they've manipulated the rankings. But you won't put him in against somebody decent from Olympic team or GB team that's won a British title. Say, for instance, if Dalton Smith moved up to 147, he'd beat Crusher Ben. O'Hara Davis beats Crusher Ben at 147. A peak O'Hara Davis against a peak Conor Ben. That's my opinion. I don't rate Conor Ben. They put him in with old men like Algieri, people like that. But other than that,
Mm.
who has he really beat? Who would you say he's beat that
That French guy, he had to rematch, didn't he?
rematched him? He didn't win
Was
the
it
first one.
Pennard or something? Pennard.
Pienaar, yeah, Frederick Pienaar.
Yes.
But no, I don't think
Yeah.
I think he's English level, stroke British on a good day against a weak opponent in a vacant belt. That's just my opinion. I'm not having a go at him because he's a drug cheat. But if you were, for instance, if Gary Sykes were a welterweight back in the day, remember Gary Sykes? Who used to throw
Yeah, yeah.
120 rounds, 120 punches around. He's got the record, hasn't he? Him and Andy Morris threw two and a half thousand punches in a fight. If you put Gary Sykes in with Crusher Ben and Gary Sykes were fighting at lightweight, Crusher Ben, for me, could be a welterweight. Gary Sykes would light him up with Julian in corner. He would light
Mm.
he would like Crusher Benoit. In fact, Julian has said, yeah, we'll move up to welterweight, and he's still lighting him up. Pete Gary Sykes, a solid British champion, would beat Conor Benn on his best day at any weight up to 154, in my opinion.
Yeah. So
Luke
so
Campbell would
what
like
is
Luke Campbell never won anything more than a Commonwealth title, did he? Luke Campbell
no.
and Tommy Coyle. They never went above Commonwealth level. That's their best belts. They would like Crusher Ben up, them two, light him up.
Yeah, yeah. What is Connor? I mean, given who his dad is, and you'd expect it, there to be some genetic advantage there, and he's got, unlimited, I suppose, facilities to train, eat right, have the coaches. What's missing? Why can't he, in your opinion?
Why can't he go all the way? Because
Yeah.
he ain't got a good ground, and his dad didn't really have much of a style. His dad never had a jab. He were all right hand leads. His old man. It's a swinger, but an hard puncher. But I never really thought he had much of a style, Nigel. I mean, more of a slugger. And he's modelled his style, and his dad with that crouching style, and he's all right hand by looks of it to me. But I don't think he's a well-schooled boxer, and I think a well-schooled boxer takes him apart. Owara Davis already snapped his jaw like a twig in Tony Perone's gym, Sim's gym. Snapped it like a twig, Owara. So no, I don't rate
Mm.
him. Chris McKinson beats him. Echo Kuzman, is it? He beats him. I don't think he could live with any of them guys at welterweight. But he's ranked number 2 at welterweight, but he's not fought at welterweight for 2.5 years. So how can he be box ranked number 2? Well,
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you as well. So, with a high profile, do you think you can get up the rankings just based on, your popularity?
yeah, not box rec because that's performance related, but you can. Well, they're saying that I think it's been manipulated now, box rec. You can in the ranking. Say, for instance, if you're aligned with a certain promoter and he's in with like the WBO, WBA, IBF, IBO, WBC, any of them 5 organizations. If you're aligned with a certain promoter, he will lobby to get you up that rankings, and we all know how it goes, that lobbying, don't we? We all know what happens. You
So in theory, Conor Benn could get a world title shot.
He could get a
In
world
theory,
title shot against a weak guy for a world title belt. I mean, his dad skipped British level. His dad never fought for a British title. They wouldn't go near Errol Bomber Graham. His dad used to have nightmares about Errol Bomber Graham. He wouldn't go near him. So, and Crusher will be having nightmares about people at British level. See, he was calling out Josh Kelly when he were coming through. I personally offered him. I'm not sure if it was 25 grand on Twitter when I worked for Dennis for him to fight Dennis's guy Danny Kennedy, and they didn't want that fight. They don't want to put Conor Benn near any danger or any 50-50 fight. They want gimme fights or big fights that are gimmick fights. They want gimme fights like knockovers, old men who are washed up like Algieri, or these two Americans he just fought, at 154 in Vegas and Florida and Vegas, or they want like a Eubank or a Crawford fight, something where they know they're going to lose because he can't beat Eubank, he's not big enough, but they're going to get paid loads of money. And that's where
yeah,
boxing is going, like Anthony Yard. He only wants to fight killers for mega money, or he wants to
mm,
fight very, very low level guys.
yeah,
They
yeah,
don't want to do any of that in betweens, 50-50s. And that's the problem
mm,
we've got in the sport of boxing at the moment. If
yeah,
people don't
yeah.
believe
I
me,
agree.
if people don't buy into what I've just said there, tell me
Mm,
on a Zoom. Let's have a debate on a Zoom because you might know this, leaving comments and sending me personal emails where you blowing steam off. Come on here on Zoom and let's see what you're all about. Pokecorner@mail.com. Don't be shy. Book you in any day you want. But that's just what I think. They're either fighting nobodies or somebody's for big dough or gimmick fights. I mean, for
yeah,
example,
no, you're right.
Tommy Fury. Is Tommy Fury going to fight anybody at light heavyweight or cruiserweight who's a professional, who's on his level? No. He wanting massive fights that are gimmick fights, against Jake Paul and stuff like that. Or for the
Yeah,
right money, he'd get him with like an Usyk type for mega millions, wouldn't he?
yeah, yeah.
Cruiserweight or
You're right. It's a win-win situation, And I was thinking this, like, if you get offered the Kovalev fight, as Yardi did, like, of course you're going to take it because, like you say, you get the respect for having the guts to do it, and win, lose or draw, you're getting paid loads of money. Why wouldn't any professionals want to do that?
It's like they're turning up to lose, but they're getting millions and they're not bothered. They're selling their
Oh,
own. It's like Fury. He's
yeah.
not going to beat Usyk, so his old's already gone. So it's just another payday for him, and he can still be known as one guy beat me, but he were like a modern day great, and that's what happens when you come up against modern day greats. But look, scratching the surface, Fury's CVs, it's not don't warrant the hype, does it? That he's got.
No, no, no. We talked about it the other day, didn't we?
Yeah.
When we broke it down. Yeah, you're right. So, if what would make you happy for Fury to do now? What do you think he should do for his legacy if he really wants
Got
to,
to rematch
retire?
Usyk and beat him, and then he's got to beat
That's the
him
only
again.
fight. Yeah?
He's got to
Okay.
beat him again then, and he's got
So,
to fight Joshua. I
yeah.
mean, the Gad's talking Joshua fight 3 times, and you won't put it past this lot, these promoters these days, putting Fury and Joshua in 3 times and giving them a shed load of money and selling it as they're both at the peaks and this and that, and just basically raping fans. That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, do you what we just spoke about with Conor Ben? Do you think the same applies to Chris Eubank Jr. or do you
Yeah,
hold him
yeah,
in
he
a
don't want
higher
to be in any
regard?
big. The big fights he's been in, he's lost Eubank. All the other fights have been gimme fights or people that are washed up like James DeGale and Arthur Abraham. But I want to ask you something now, right? If
Yeah.
Anthony Joshua loses against Dubois, if he even fights him in February, and I don't think he does, but if Anthony Joshua loses again, right? How many more times do you think they're going to wheel him out as pay-per-view? Because if he keeps losing, I mean, how many pay-per-view fighters do we know that have got five defeats, but they keep pay-per-viewing them? Normally, when they've had
Chisora.
few defeats, they're down the road, they're good at bottom at queue, but they keep repackaging Joshua, don't they, and throwing him down our necks.
Yeah,
How many more losses does Joshua have to have before somebody says you're not pay-per-view, son?
yeah. Well, Porky, to answer that question, it's as many times as they can build a story. So, like I said, yesterday, they can build the story of the rematch with what's his name, Dylan White.
Doing what?
That's a story. That's a bullshit story that we know is
WWE
bullshit, but they
story,
can
isn't it?
they can build on that. They could build the story. I mean, hell, they could even make Dave Allen v AJ. Really, they could build a story that Dave Allen beat him in sparring up at Sheffield, and
Yeah, he
he's
had a
got a
good session
vendetta. Do you know
against
what
him
I
in
mean?
sparring. David did have a good session against him years ago in sparring.
That's what I mean. That's suddenly that could resurface and come as a narrative. And then you've got box office at the O2, AJV Dave Thingy White, not White, Dave Allen.
Very well, yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I just think it's about telling a story, isn't it, and selling it to the public, repackaging, as you said, repackaging, reselling, bearing in mind that the general audience are fickle and will buy into it, which is the truth. So
Dylan
yeah,
White, the
we'll
can man, will be gagging for a Joshua fight because it's another payday for him. And do you know what?
of
They're
course.
both just about finished, aren't they, really?
Yeah, yeah. So who would you say in 5 years' time, who do you think is going to be running the heavyweight division?
I'd
Moses?
like to think it'd be Daniel Dubois and Moses Atome. That's what I'd like to think.
What
Uh,
about the Americans? Who have the Americans got?
Frank,
Jared Anderson,
Frank,
he's
Jared
lost.
Anderson, Frank Sanchez, that they've already been beat. I think they've been found out. They don't really have anybody.
Sanchez is about 50, isn't he?
Uh,
Sanchez isn't young.
They're knocking on a bit. The way I see it is just that they need to stick to basketball, baseball, and American football. They haven't got any big heavyweights out there, big name ones. They're all in Europe, the big names.
No. But like you're saying, it's not the main sport in America, is it? They got so much revenue coming in, from the
Basketball.
NFL,
I
the
think basketball's
NBA.
big one, isn't it? And NFL, they're big ones, aren't they?
They're all big because with basketball, the Americans get a lot of money from China because they sell them the TV rights. That's when there was an NBA player, I can't remember who it was, he was critical of China and how they're, suppressing their people because they're mental communists. And he got in trouble because, the Chinese said, right, we're not going to show your basketball games in China anymore because there's so much money involved in it.
Oh, crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's big
Oh,
business.
okie dokie. Well, listen, Ian, thanks for coming on. You've been a real addition to the commission. Thank you very much. You're
No
top man.
problem. No problem. We'll do
All
it again soon, yeah?
all right, you take care, Ian. Cheers,
Cheers,
mate.
Porky.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Well, that were Ian from Gatwick. Women love him, men want to be him. Thanks for coming on, Ian. And that goes to anybody else who wants to come on the channel. The email's bottom left-hand corner. Can you see it down there? porkycorner@mail.com. Come and roll the dice. Don't be shy. All you little keyboard warriors, come on here and be a man. Big shout out to Carl Froch. Thank you very much for the shout out in your video yesterday. And yes, I will accept your offer to go on your channel as soon as you've sorted out when and what we're going to do. Yeah. So cheers. I look forward to it. It'll help my channel move forward. Message to Billy Watson. Thank you very much. I look forward to coming on your channel as well. The offers just keep coming in. Pop, pop, bang. Looking forward to having Femi Femtim Tola's brother on Saturday. I've got James on tomorrow. More Rabbit Than Sainsbury's. And Dave Goodwin's debut. So it's all looking good. Stig, when are you coming back into the pig pen? Big shout out to Stig. Women love him, men want to be him. Okie dokie. Go on, peace out. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. And I hope everybody driving around Rotherham in Parkgate likes the big billboard that's just gone up. All right. And that goes for all you workmen out there who think you can just go around ripping people off. Hey, it's not good. Not good at all. Have we got a picture of it? Yeah, that's it. That's in Rotherham. All right. And there's another one going up in Sheffield next week. Pop, pop, bang. If anybody's got any problems with anybody, especially workmen that rip you off and you want to call them out, come and see your Uncle Big P and we'll put them up in lights. Go on, booyaka. Peace out. Big shout out to Scott Brunt, Spartan Demolition as well. And Chris Barnes, my pal Chris Barnes. Hope you well on the hard road. Keep that fitness up, kids. Go on, peace out. And another shout out. Frank Smith in Bury in Turkey getting your teeth done. Go on, lad. Love you, mate. Dave and John as well. Big shout out from Bury. Booyaka.